Welcome to Feral Friday with Amy and Kelly and a special guest tonight, which I'm so excited to hear. Who we got in here tonight?
We got Dennis in here. Hey, Dennis. Nikki.
Hey, Dennis Sweeney. Good to see you. Hi, Barbara.
Toots Toots.
Toots? Where's my Toot Toot Magoo?
There
she is. Oh, my Hi, Casey.
Casey, my love. Hi, Barbara.
Casey,
how are you?
Yes. Prince Lava, good to see you. So, we were talking backstage, but you're not as well as many facts about Sandra Birchmore as you are with Karen Reed, and we have the perfect guest for you tonight, sister.
I know. I'm excited to learn. I get in different cases, like all around the country. So for me, like it's like when all these cases came out in one area, I was like, whoa, this is crazy, especially in Canton. Like, wow, what? I've heard of that place before.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have her come on.
Yes, there's a lot of overlap. Exactly. Just for Sandra. Yeah. All right, guys. Without further ado, here's our girl, Mizzy.
Hi. How's it going?
How are you? Beautiful. You're so beautiful on screen.
She is so beautiful.
Thank you.
The best hair. It was just. I have a hat on today because I couldn't get mine right.
This isn't working today. So
the only time I do my hair is when I do a show, or like half the times when I go to a standout, I don't even do my hair unless I know that cameras are definitely going to be there. But
I wish I could wear hats. Like Amy put a hat on. I wish I could. They bother my head.
Yeah,
I look like my older brother when I wear a hat. I look just like him. It's scary.
So my sister and my dad gave us no hair. Like we have I have 8 hairs on my head. My sister has 3. And that would be his genes. And so I wear extensions, of course, because that's the only way I can get hair to actually look decent. My sister used to wear extensions, but now my sister wears wigs, and she's trying to get me into wigs. And I'm like, I can't stand it touching my head. Like it's the extensions I'm used to, you know what I mean? And I can take them out if they bother me because they're clip-ins. But with
I love a good wig. I just can't wear them anymore because of my migraines. There's so much fun.
She has
Auntie Deb has a bunch of wigs. Oh. Yeah.
And she kills them in all of them. She kills it.
I probably have twice as many.
Yeah, my sister has 70 wigs, and they're all
I don't have that many.
They're like Chelsea Smith, or the Chelsea Smith crowns. Because when she first bought one, like $10 wig off TikTok. She's like, "Look what I bought," and I was like, "Don't go there. I don't know about wearing them, but I know this person wears them or sells them, and they're really good." And so she
I got good wigs that are quality are really expensive. So expensive. I was looking into it just in case I had to have chemo, and I was like, well, your girl needs a wig. And I was looking into they're really expensive. The really good ones.
But you know what? They're you don't have to do as much work with them anymore with the lace fronts and stuff.
Oh, true.
Because my sister walks in, I can't even tell even when she's standing next to me, unless I'm up on her. And I'm like, pull it up. I want to see it. Pull it up. So,
All right, so let's get started. So, Mizzy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got, because you are the face of Sandra Birchmore, and we admire you for everything you do for this case. I was telling you before backstage that this case gets me really, really, really passionate.
I've seen you in the chats a couple times for the one with Dylan. I know you were in the chat. I think you were the one who noticed something about there was something about the video of him walking in and out. You were the first one to point that out. And I can't remember what it was, but you pointed out you were the first one ever. And I was like, oh yeah, I noticed that.
I love that.
But I don't remember what it was, but I remember from that live. I remember you pointing that out. So I'm Mizzy. I started the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group. I run it with Barb. She's in the chat. That's Sandra's cousin and my team.
Barbara, hi.
Yeah. And I'm a fellow content creator. My page started in 2020, and in 2021, I started interviewing families of loved ones who were murdered. And I worked with them a bit, whether it be like sending emails or just like helping them out as much as I could.
Right.
And that continued for a few years. And then in 2002, and the Stoughton internal report came out for Sandra. I started on the news and I was screaming at my TV, and I just was like, what is going on? This is insanity that 3 officers did this to this young woman. And then later on in the report, they said she herself, and I was like, no, she didn't. And then her friend was talking about it, and I'm like screaming at her friend saying, your friend was murdered. I knew right from the get-go. There was something, I just knew. And I was working on a couple of different cases.
Things didn't make sense. Things didn't like add up, it seemed like.
Yeah, from the second I heard about the story, I was like, nothing adds up. There
didn't smell right.
Yeah. And so I was working on a couple cases, so I wasn't able to like totally jump into her case. But I would like at night when I would lay down, I would like try to look and see if there were any new articles, were there any news reports? I mean, the story was only in the news for a couple days,
right,
which is in itself ludicrous. Like that should have been a story that was picked up by national news. I mean, it wasn't that it was one officer, it was 3 police officers.
That we know of. That's like a definite.
Well,
yeah.
Technically, there is a 4th officer who wasn't. He was the former animal control officer who went on to be a police officer in Abington, and so it's like
real peach that one.
Huh?
Yeah. He's a real peach that one.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if you remove Sandra from him, it's just he should have never been an officer. Anyway,
there's a few of them out there that shouldn't, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of police officers who shouldn't be police officers.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. So I just kept looking into her. Like I would look for her case, and I'd try to find out information that I could. And then in early 2023, my friend Sarah, who happens to be the first case I worked on, her son Brandon Embry was murdered, and she messages me and she said, what is up with that Sandra Birchmore case? And I was shocked that she knew about it because she lives in North Carolina and people around here didn't know the case. And it just happens that the guys from the Case podcast interviewed her to possibly do Brandon's story, but they picked up Sandra's story because she was local. And she said, we need to look into this case because there's something wrong here. And I said, I've been looking at the case, but I haven't done a deep dive. And she said, let's do it. And I said, I'm game. I was like, let's do this. So over about 3 weeks, we started digging into every little thing we could. We, looked at her apartment building. I did a virtual tour of the apartment. I wanted to find out what kind of doorknobs they had because, Sandra was found in a seated position, not partially elevated, totally seated, her butt on the floor. Right. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. And I was like, that was one of the things that made me see nose scratching.
If you guys see me scratching, allergies are crazy, I promise.
Like we're deep for everybody.
I'm already like,
so we did like a dive, and we just kept really digging into what we could find on her case. I started reading the Stoughton report. I put in some FOIA requests, and I couldn't get into her full Facebook group page, but it wasn't fully locked, so you could see pictures. And luckily, I was able to look at a bunch of pictures, and I replied to every family member or friend that either was tagged in a photo, replied to a photo, or liked the photo. And we cursed ourselves.
We did. I made sure that
I'll knock on wood for you right now.
Now my nose is just
let's start drinking. Everyone in the chat, take a shot when one of us touches our nose.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen a lot.
So then that's where that began. And Sarah, she needed to get back to her son's case because his case isn't solved. And she is the one who pushed me to really, really fully take on Sandra's case. It was always my intention to get to her case, but I was trying to finish those other cases. And when she came to me and said, hey, you know, she said, I have to get back to Brandon's case. I'll do a petition if you do the Facebook page. Because we were shocked there wasn't even a Facebook page, like even a dedicated page to her. And I forgot to say, so there was only one family member who got back to me, and that was Barb. And that's where our partnership came into, it. Yeah. And, you know, Barb was the right person at the right time because she was living on the West Coast. She was thinking about moving back. She was getting ready to retire. So it ended up being perfect timing. And so Sarah said, I got to get back to Brandon's case. And I said, okay. She said, will you do the Facebook page? And that's when I knew that I was going to have to put, you know, my page, A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World, kind of on the shelf, because I knew that I was going to have to fully deep dive into Sandra's case and always be putting out content, articles, and, you know, finding anything I could. I was, you know, pulling up TikToks and downloading them to put on the page. I knew we were going to have to keep putting out constant content on her page to keep people's minds, you know, satiated to stay into the case. Right. And that's what we did. And so we started the page in late February of 2023. And it's kind of weird because, you know, not too long after that is when, you know, Karen Reed's case started heating up. So I was just getting my sea legs, you know, with Sandra's case, getting everything laid out and acclimated to the case as much as I could, so I could be able to put out information with some sort of authority, not, you know, not just winging it. And that's when Karen's case started to heat up. And so I started to like kind of become lockstep with, as Karen's case got bigger, so did Sandra's case.
And they started going hand in hand, and that was a beautiful thing. And I give you so much credit for doing that for Sandra's story. Seriously, I mean, it was hand in hand.
Thank you. And it just ended up being like, you know, it was perfect for both cases because it was showing that it wasn't that Karen's team was just fully talking out of their ass. There is stuff going on in Norfolk County. There is another case that happened exactly a year before John's murder that has a lot of similarities when it comes to the police. There is police corruption in Sandra's case. So it was like, oh, wait a minute. You guys are saying there's no corruption in Karen's case, but a year before you guys covered up another case. So how are we to believe you as the public?
Well,
and luckily, you know, Free Karen Reed was receptive to it, because I know there were a lot of other cases that
there's a lot of cross in between the officers. It's like when Beverly said, "Oh, Fanning has a great reputation." What?
Yeah.
Oh, ma'am.
Are we talking about the same guy?
Yeah, and like I said, luckily Free Karen Reed was receptive to hearing Sandra's case, because there were a lot of other people who were trying to, like, you know, grab on to. I say I grabbed onto Karen's skirt tails and I held on for dear life. And I was lucky enough to meet her in a private moment and be able to thank her. I told her, I said, because you fought, it made it easier for me to fight for Sandra, and because you actually fought for Sandra.
Well, I feel like Karen has opened up that door that people aren't really used to, that it's opened up that door, like, because even Karen was not as widespread in the beginning. When I started watching Karen, I'm in Florida. So for me, I found it actually in January of 2024. So and then as I watched Karen, I learned more about Sandra's case. I don't know, but I also didn't deep dive into it because I was so emotionally invested into Karen's case and learning every aspect of it, that I wanted to make sure that, you know, that I knew what I was talking about when it came to Karen. So because I'm not one that wants to put misinformation out there. So now the same thing when it comes to Sandra, like, I'm so glad to talk with you about it and learn this stuff, because I don't want to put that misinformation and not know it. what I asked my question to you is, how many of the same players, same cops are involved together with Sandra and Karen's case?
I believe there's 11, or it might be 10. Like Lank.
10 too many.
Yeah, there is too many. But Lank,
Good.
Kevin Albert. Nope, Good isn't in Sandra's case.
Okay.
Gallagher is kind of in her case. That's why I think I say 11, because he was a supervisor to everybody, and I've gotten inside information where I do believe that it's true what I got. Obviously Fanning, Dunn. I know Dunn isn't as well known in the Karen Reed case, but he is part of the Karen Reed case. Trooper Clark, Colleen Crawford, obviously Michael Morrison.
That's right. I forgot about her. Yep.
Yeah, she's the one who basically, that video that you were going to play, she's the one who said, "Oh, nothing to see here, people. There's nothing there. He's good." Yeah. He was, he wasn't doing anything wrong. And
everything's fine. Nothing to see here.
Huh?
I said everything's fine. Nothing to see here. These people are fucking crazy.
So, she, and then we all know how shady it ends up being, how shady she was. Who else? Even people that aren't really mentioned, like their spokesperson, I can never pronounce his name, Traub. He's part of it. He was putting stuff out for the Norfolk DA's office. So when it came to Sandra's
and
case.
He just retired or got relieved of his duties too. I just want to say something. I have a few friends from down south who are following the Karen Reed case, but this might be a little newer to them. Sandra Birchmore is a young girl who was groomed and sexually assaulted and all types of different things from police in Stoughton, Massachusetts, where she was unalived. There is a man, Matthew Farwell, in federal lockup right now due to her unaliving. She was pregnant with his baby at the time. And there's a lot of crossover because she lived in Canton at the time of her murder. There's Canton police officers that are also involved with the Karen Reed story case as well. So there's a lot of overlap, and they covered up for a fellow officer by saying that she unalived herself, which I just like to say, as I've been a single parent since almost the beginning, right? And I loved my son immediately. And the chances of a pregnant girl who wanted to keep her baby and was actively out there searching for baby gifts and cribs and things like that, they don't underlie themselves.
Photo shoots already? No. Like photo shoots?
So I just wanted to clear that
setting up photo shoots. She already had planned for people to watch her cats when she went into labor. Right. She had bought a car seat, a carriage. She bought a ton of baby clothes. She was planning a baby shower. She also went so far as she put, I believe, the car seat in the car to test it. Right. That's how she was about to announce the child that she was pregnant to the world, even though she already had told almost everybody out there that she was pregnant, because she couldn't control herself not to tell everybody, because she was so excited. Yeah. So on Valentine's Day, she was murdered on the February 1st, but on Valentine's Day, she was going to tell people that she was pregnant. She had her friend paint a canvas that said, "My own very little Valentine," or "My special little Valentine." And it was this pretty canvas painting that her friend did she was going to post it on her social media to let everybody know. Yeah. So it's like, this was not somebody, that was going to do this. She was also telling coworkers that, "I'm ready to be a single mom if I have to. Obviously I want him in the life, but if I can't, amen. If I can't, I'll do it by myself." So she was putting pressure on him to sign the birth certificate, though. She did want him to be in the baby's life, but she was saying, "I'm ready to, do it myself if I have to. And people got to understand, they had broken up many times before. He had never come in person to break up. It was always over the phone or, through text messages or over, in a phone call. So for him to show up that night rings hollow, So some other things about her case. So she started the Stoughton Explorers group when she was 12. She became a full-fledged member when she was 13, because you technically have to be 13 when you join. She did that till this was around 2011. She did this till 2016, I believe, when it was closed. She was groomed from day one by 3 officers, but especially Matthew Farwell. And was
it his brother involved too?
Yes, his brother was also involved. But Matthew, it was like the long game. Like he would take her he would go to the library with her and help her with homework. Her mom thought she was putting her in a program she was going to have some mentors, and these scumbags just destroyed her life. And then later on, at the age of 15, that's when he started assaulting her. And that's how grooming works. It's not something that happens overnight.
That's how it works.
A groomer is somebody. It took years for that to happen. And then his brother and Robert Devine, also police officers. Robert Devine's the former Stoughton deputy chief, but he was demoted after another sex scandal. They also began having inappropriate relationships with Sandra on the job, and
in their cruisers,
and or at her apartment, and things that they weren't supposed to be doing. So that's where it's and this continued till she was 23 when she was murdered. But also, people got to understand, when she was 12, her grandfather died. He was the male figure in her life. And then in 2016, her mother died, and then her grandmother died a month later.
Oh my gosh.
So she had a lot of loss within a short period of time. And then in 2019, her aunt died. So she lost almost all of her close family members. She does have cousins. She still does have her aunt. And Barb is one of those cousins. But, her close family, she lost them.
That's a tremendous amount of loss in a short time. A tremendous amount of loss.
Yeah, at such a young age. And also, you got to understand that when a child is groomed, it stunts them. So she was a very, very smart young woman, but she was emotionally stunted. And that's basically what grooming does. It kind of puts pause on that person's emotional, mental state. So that's it. And
what they do is they groom these victims to be addicted to them. And they get their claws in. And you can also have like a Stockholm syndrome where this person's hurting you and they're doing all these bad things, but you love them because this is what they conditioned you to believe from a very young age. And she's been a victim since she was a child.
Yep.
So it happened when she was 23, but she was a child.
Yeah. And she thought that's what a healthy relationship was.
Right.
She thought her and Matthew, she considered Matthew her boyfriend, and she thought that was a healthy relationship. And obviously we all know it wasn't, and unfortunately, his wife got pregnant, and it really ticked Sandra off, and because that's all she wanted was a baby. And sorry, my nose is so itchy.
Drink, guys, drink.
You're making mine go too. I'm like, is my nose running too?
I might have to run to the bathroom and wipe my makeup off. Really. But
take your time.
So Sandra went through a lot in her short life, and she was finally, when his wife got pregnant, she kind of turned the tides on him, and because she learned all those manipulative behaviors from him. And so she started manipulating him, and she wanted a baby, and that's how it came to head. And about 2 weeks before she was murdered, she owed one of her friends money. and she was avoiding that friend and not giving the friend money back. And that friend called the Stoughton Police Department. And I feel bad for this friend because it was part of Sandra's, like, it was the start of that domino of what led up to her death.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
So she called the police department, and the cop that answered the front desk is like, I'm sorry, ma'am, there's nothing we could do about that. That's a civil case. You're going to have to file a civil complaint to get your money back from her. And so her friend got pissed, and she said, oh yeah, well, you tell Matthew Farwell that his girlfriend better pay me back my money. And that officer went to Matthew instead of going to leadership, and Matthew lost his shit. Like, that's what set him off. He started plotting and planning. He asked her for a key to her apartment. He never wanted one before. He was bringing her ginger ale, and she was even texting friends saying, he's being really nice to me. It's really weird. And he also was going to the looking around her apartment. He looked at the closet door. He looked in her closet, and he looked in her bathroom. And
that behavior, it's like, imagine what was going over her head. Just like, what is she doing?
Like, I don't know what he's doing. He's being really, really, really weird. And luckily, she text messaged a friend that. And when that friend said that, and Matthew found out, he flipped out on the other officer, and he like called her and got so mad and was yelling at her because he was like, who else have you told? And he was text messaging angry things. He's like, what other shoes are going to drop? Who else is going to call my work? And she was starting to tell people, oh, the guy I've been seeing, well, this didn't start, as an adult. It started when I was like, 12, 15. We started hooking up, when I wasn't of age. So her friends were starting to find out. So he was about to lose it all. He could have lost it all. And that baby would have been the proof of the product of his infidelity, at least. But they would have
absolutely.
Been like, why
it's the ultimate exposure. It's the ultimate.
A former explorer. She's only 23. Why are you with this young girl? You're in your 30s. You've known her since she was 12. Or so it's like,
in all ways, he did kind of lose everything because he got caught. So
yeah,
that's
good.
But he didn't think. He thought when he walked out of that apartment, he thought he was golden because he knew who was going to investigate it.
Let's watch the video.
Let's watch the video. So this is the video of her and him coming in and out of the building that she was murdered in. That's her by the elevator.
And look how tiny she is. She's 4'10". She's a peanut.
Tiny.
She's 4'10", and he's 6'4".
How far along was she?
10 weeks.
Okay.
And this is the last time she's seen alive. And that night, just like on the night John was murdered, it was a huge snowstorm. It was a nor'easter. In Canton, they got about a foot of snow. Now, if you noticed how he walked in, he was hunched over, hood up, mask on. He was an anti-masker. This is during COVID.
Oh, a huge anti-masker, right? He was one of those people like, I'm not putting on no mask. Yeah.
The only time he wore a mask
now, aren't you, motherfucker?
Because police officers had to wear masks. And
so this is where Matthew comes in, you say, right?
Yeah, when he comes in, look how he's hunched over. He's trying to make himself look small. He's trying to make himself not look as 6'4".
Yeah, he's enormous. Look at him.
Hands in his pockets.
And I would just like to put this out into the ether that this mother, his wife was having a baby
the next morning.
And because I think currently, I thought she had said that she was already at the hospital being waited.
She was already at the hospital. Because
So
you gotta realize it was a nor'easter, so they wanted to make sure she was going to be able to get in to have the baby, so they had her come in that night.
Yeah.
So when he left, he had. I thanks Young Jerks for letting me borrow that because that's the only place I can find it. When she left, he had gloves on, right? When he left.
I don't know. There's been people who thought they saw gloves on his hands, but he was there for 28 or 29 minutes. There was a few things that I needed to know to fully make me say I knew this happened, and I was able to get that information from one of them from Fanning. When I spoke to him for about 40 minutes on the phone one time, and I asked him, did her phone stop moving when he left? And he said, yeah. And I was like, that's suspicious.
Well, you can see when he walked out, like the doors stayed open, and it was like almost slow motion after when he walked out just now.
Yeah,
it's like, is that eerie thought of now that we know what happened? I feel like the doors kind of stayed open as a slow motion thing because they normally close pretty quickly when she was coming in and out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When he walks out, and Barb pointed this out to me, because when he walks in hunched over, hands in pockets, but when he walks out, he's fully standing, like it's done.
Real proud of himself.
To the hospital, had a baby.
Real proud.
Yeah.
And like the piece of shit
a photo
he
of
is.
him in the hospital holding his baby, and his eyes are dead. Like,
is it online?
Can you imagine? Can you?
Yeah, it's online. I'm not sure where. It's probably on our page, but we have so much stuff on our page.
Let me see. I search it for it.
It's just really creepy.
Do you know what really sold me to? Like, you know, like those different like things about different cases that you'll be like, yeah, no, see, this is why I don't believe that shit. I know as like a woman, like I'm not like a phone person. I'm a texter. I'll text you all day long, 24 hours a day. I'll post on social media. I'll do those. If I stop posting on social media or if I stop texting you, please check on me. Like they said that as soon as he stopped. As soon as she left the building, she stopped texting people, didn't text her friends like, hey, he just came by. Oh, I love him. Oh, we got to fight. Nothing. That completely stopped after he left. That was like the biggest red flag for me. Like, no 20-something-year-old girl is going to stop. Listen, whenever we got issues with our men's, who do we call? Each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that was I knew right then and there. I was like, he did that to her. That's all I needed to hear.
She was texting with Barb. She texted Barb to check in on her. And so he left about 9:40 and 43, I think it was. And he, so it was later, so some of her friends possibly could have been asleep, but she could have called Barb. Barb was on the West Coast. And I mean, I know we're all adults, so calling a friend when something, you break up with your boyfriend, you're not going to get mad. But she knew she could call Barb on the West Coast at that time. And Barb would have gladly sat on the phone with her. We got to remember, too, this is during COVID. So, and she was Snapchatting with a coworker. And the last Snapchat was not answered. So, and if you notice that video, she has the phone in her hand a lot. And there's one part where she's walking in the elevator and she's either texting somebody or answering the phone. So she always had her phone on her. She even got in trouble at work a few times for using her phone. So there's no way. That's why, like I said, when I talked to Fanning, I was like, did her phone stop moving? And when he said yes, and then I think he realized, like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. He said, but we think she did it right away. And I was like, right away?
Stop it. Fanning, stop it. Right then and there. I need to hear all. Okay, if you're willing, I need to hear all about your meeting with Fanning because this fascinates me. This made it such a puke.
I'll tell you about it. But if you want to hear like a whole deep dive into it, I posted one not too long ago.
I found something
I'll just watch that.
But
It's fascinating.
The version.
I found something online, Mizzy. I want to see if you've seen it, because this thing I just found online. I actually found it. Me and Amy found it one day, and I saved it to my bookmarks. Have you seen this before?
What is it called?
It's called crime timelines.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it had like other stuff in there that you.
I know everything in there, but there's some inconsistencies in there.
I don't doubt that at all.
I believe it can be like a Wikipedia where certain people can edit details in or out.
The girl who put it together got angry because I said that. I said, well, it's true. But yeah, I mean, it does have a lot of information in there. But
look how cute she is. She's just
adorable.
I mean, and you gotta understand that was her when she graduated. You know, she
looks like she's 12. Imagine what she looked like at 12 when they started grooming her.
Yeah, look at these. Look at that
one. Like a baby.
That photos from the Police Explorers.
That's crazy. That's the first one, the little one, right?
Yeah. Well, the other one, I don't know how old she was in that photo, but the one where she's wearing the blue t-shirt, the one that's up front. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see if you had seen that.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta sneeze again, but
so my conversation with Fanning, we had done in 2023 in August, towards the end of August, we did a standout at Michael Morrissey's office. And I printed flyers and I had everybody write a letter to Michael Morrissey on the back of the flyers. And we brought him into his office, but he wasn't there, which I think was a lie because it's the same week that he recorded that what we all like to call a hostage video. That's the same week. So they told me he was on vacation and I was like, okay. Anyway, so nobody got back to me and I called them and I said, I haven't heard from anybody. What's going on? And they said, let us get back to you. And then in the new year, a few months later, I called a few months after that. I think I called around October. And then in the new year, I called again and I said, I still haven't heard from anybody. And, we did our thing in August and it's now January. And they said, well, let me see. I'll see if I can get somebody to talk to you. We'll get back to you. And basically giving me the runaround. Well, I being a bonehead, when you call somebody on your, I don't know if you have an iPhone, you go into your logs. I thought my phone had rung and I was in the other room and I came back and it said Canton. So I thought they had called me, but for some reason that phone call to me didn't register, which is weird. So I thought they called me. So I called them back and I said, yeah, I just got a phone call from you guys. And the girl at the front desk who has been the gatekeeper, basically not letting me talk to anybody, was like, okay, I'll send you to Morrissey's secretary. So I got his personal secretary. I was like, yeah, you guys just called me. She was like, oh, I don't know who called you. Let me take your name and number and let me see if I can get somebody to call you back. So I'm thinking I'm just getting the runaround again. So I'm chilling watching General Hospital with my mom. And my phone rings and I think it said Stoughton. And I was like, oh shit, I got to take this.
Okay, now
I the kitchen and he's like, hi, this is Trooper Fanning. You called about Sandra Birchmore and I'm the lead detective on her case. And so him and I had a phone call for about 40 minutes and I kept putting it to him. I think she was murdered. And the key points that he said to me, he said, we've closed the case when it comes to her death. It's a suicide. And I said, I don't think it is. I think he murdered her. And he said, trust me, bro. I do this for a living.
I was there.
Yeah, I know what's going on. I do this for a living and trust me. And I'm like, I think she was murdered. And I said, he was a detective. He would have known how to cover up the scene. And he said,
detective.
He goes, yeah, Matthew Farrell was a detective. And he goes, oh, he wasn't a real detective. I said, what?
How is he not a real detective compared to a fake one?
Yeah, I said, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, he wasn't a real detective. He's like, I don't even know how many, I don't know how many deaths he's even seen. I'm just like, what is this guy talking about?
Well, apparently,
what an odd thing to say. I mean, granted, it's Stoughton and nothing happens there, but what an odd fucking thing to say.
They are the ones who, just like when they found Sandra's body, there was 2 SRO officers and a patrolman who went to Sandra's apartment and found her. They called the detectives. That would be what happened say if there was a body found in Stoughton, they would call the supervisor and a detective over. Sure. Who would come there, and they're supposed to photograph, and then the Massachusetts State Police is also supposed to come in. So it made no sense to me.
Find a body on the lawn.
Yeah, they're supposed to come and take photos and measurements.
Comparing, making sure I know everything.
Something, do something.
So I was like, what is it? So I kept looping back. I kept going back to saying, I think she was murdered. And he was like, no, she wasn't. And there were 2 very disturbing pieces that he told me. He said to me, he said, she was in counseling. She had mental health issues. I go, yes, I know she had mental health issues. I go, but that doesn't mean she killed herself. I said, I tried to kill myself when I was 13. And just because you do it once doesn't mean you're going to do it again. And I know, I said, I will concede to you that somebody can have an instantaneous reason that they go and kill themselves. I said, that's not Sandra's case. I said, it wasn't like that with Sandra. He's like, but you don't know. I said,
but like, neither do you.
She was happy she was pregnant. I was like, I've talked to so many friends and family. I've talked to a lot of people too. I've been running my own investigation. And he goes, well, right now, her death portion is closed, but we're still looking at the other portions of the case. And he said something about, we're trying to see if we can bring charges up on one of them. I go, oh, Matthew Farwell. And I think
the one that was raping her.
How much I really knew about the case, because I knew when he started, raping her at the age of 15. And he goes,
right.
Oh, I go, yeah, I know a lot about this case. I go, I've read
Mizzy.
I've read every report. And then he told me that, they have all her therapist notes and all that stuff. And that's when we got into the part about, I could see that, people can't spontaneously want to do that. And I said, he goes, she was very sneaky. I go, yeah, because she was groomed. I go, that's what happens when you're groomed. A child that is groomed covers up for the people who groomed her.
Exactly. Preach it. That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. They try to protect their abusers. Yes.
And I said, she was made to be that way by them. And then he said, this is the part that gets me the most angry about our conversation. He said, he was very careful in his text messages. He didn't incriminate himself in those text messages.
But what, the text messages they could find?
Very careful. He didn't say much in those text messages. Now, I didn't believe him, but I was like questioning it. Like, was he? Like, because obviously I didn't have the text messages in front of me.
Right.
I'll find out in August 2024, those text messages are, excuse me, I have to drop a few F-bombs, are motherfucking fucking disgusting.
What?
They are so
you mean the 30,000 text messages that Guarino didn't find in his fucking Celebrate extraction?
But see, that's the thing is, that's a whole smoke screen. Because it doesn't matter about the text messages that he didn't find. The fact that he didn't find them, because that is what Celebrate was literally invented for. And Norfolk County wants to try to tell us that's not what it's for. That's what it's for. But
only for Sandra and Karen Reed, because if you listen to Walsh's arraignments or you listen to Turek, all of those are completely 100% Celebrate is the gold standard. But you get these 2 other cases and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But that was their way of saying, there's nothing to see here, folks.
Right.
But they had Sandra's computer, which had all her text messages backed up. So Fanning is the one who went through these text messages. So them saying there was nothing on his phone is a smokescreen because it didn't matter. They had her stuff. They had her computer, they had her phone, and they had a MacBook. All that stuff was backed up. They had those 32,000 plus text messages this whole time. This whole entire time. And there's 50,000, over 50,000 messages between her and the 3 officers.
Wow.
So when they say,
I'm not saying anything mean, but that's a lot of going back and forth. That's a lot of messages going back and forth. I mean, they had to, but to ask you a question, why do you think that they sat on it?
Because
like
they
if
were
they
covering
had
up for a fellow officer.
Okay. So basically, what you're saying is they had all the information on like the computers and stuff, but instead of going and using that and say, "Hey, we have this information," they went with the dunce reaction of, "Well, there's really nothing there."
Yep.
How,
and
how
their
disgusting.
excuse was Sandra was dead, so she couldn't testify against them.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of like Sandra's case, and what they're doing to cover it up made them better to cover up John's.
Yeah, I think when they found when John's, they were like, "Oh, we already did this last year. Yeah, we got you." I'll be right back for 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead. But you know what's it was like a year to the day that it all happened. Like John O'Keefe was the 29th, and she was killed February 1st the year before.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because it was a leap year.
And she, so even though she was abused by these Stoughton police officers and whatever, her apartment was in Canton. So that's where the crossover happens, where everything was kind of, Lank was there and so on and so forth. And it ended up being,
it's like her apartment is like so close to Stoughton, you might as well call it in Stoughton.
That's okay. That's what I was wondering.
It was in the Canton line, so they had to.
I live
in considered Canton, but it may as well be in Stoughton. I live in one of those border towns too.
Yeah, when you pull out of her apartment building, the driveway, I don't know if it's to the right or the left. I think it's to the right. It says "Welcome to Canton" or "Welcome to Stoughton." Yeah. That's how close. Like, there's literally a sign. You can see the sign. It's right there.
The other's down the street. So one half of the street is Orange County, and the other half is Seminole County. So my kids had to go to Seminole County schools instead, and it's literally in the middle of the street that cuts it.
Yeah.
So let's move up a little bit. So we got up to the actual, the investigation part and the celebrate and the missing of text messages and the everyone covering for each other, everyone, that thin blue line, all of these monsters. Now, this is the worst part for me. Okay, Sandra has my heart and will always have my heart, and I will always keep her name out there because of these monsters that took advantage of her forever since she was a child. And I will always keep saying her name. Sandra Birchmore and her baby lost their life to a person who was supposed to protect her. These people are tax-paying people, they're getting paid by us to protect us, and yet they're abusing our children. So there's that. Though I will always keep her name out there, always. So since her being found, they said that she underlied herself when you're like, no, I'm not taking that answer because you're fucking common sense, you're right. And then going forward, what was it like from like that point up to the point of like Farwell getting arrested by the feds that day? Like what transpired from the time that you talked to Fanning to his arrest? Within reason, whatever you want to tell.
So that happened when I spoke to Fanning was early 2024, and he was arrested on August 28th. We just kept pushing her case. I got YouTube partners like LTL, the Young Jerks, and the Glare, and anybody else's show I could go on. and I started going on shows. That's when it started broadening. Like a lot of, the Free Karen Read were really starting to, especially like people who didn't live in the area, they were starting to see like, whoa, these cases are very similar. And obviously they had two different, I mean, their cases are very different, but there's a lot of synergy in the cases. But also, like, pin it on the girl. They pinned it on Karen, but they also pinned it on Sandra.
I know,
so, yeah, girl.
Basically accused her own doing. And that's the
And so we just spent the next months, like I said, I went on any show that I could, we started doing standouts like every month. We only do one a month. I'm disabled. I cannot physically do, like every weekend or like more than, I can't do that. We do one a month, or either in Stoughton or Canton. And sometimes we do this Cobb's Corner, and it's where Stoughton, Canton, and Sharon all meet. It's a four-way stop. So it's like, it was like one of my favorite places that we've done because it's so busy. And we did it in a rainstorm, so I can just imagine how much better it would be, like with it being a nice day. Our Nook, though, I love our Stoughton ones because it's this 5-way intersection, and there's like a triangle little area that like they have some trees and stuff, and they have benches there, and so we can stand like in a triangle and it's such a perfect area to do a standout.
And is that's Stoughton Center?
Yes, right in Stoughton Center. It's right across from Town Hall. And if we have too many people, where we have had a couple times, we can branch out onto the other streets, like on the different sides. We just kept, especially online, blitzing, but we kept pushing it. Like, every time, like an officer was mentioned, especially when Fanning started really being mentioned, I would say, Fanning, hello. I've been telling you guys about Fanning, but things changed in June. The family did after the Stoughton report came out in 22, the family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the 3 officers, the town of Stoughton, and sorry, I just had a pop-up on my computer. I just want to get it out because it'll make my computer lag even more than it. Okay. And so, them doing their lawsuit, they were able to gather a lot of information, and they ended up hiring that the next year in 2024, they hired world-renowned pathologist Dr. Bodden. He's worked on a lot of cases. He was on the OJ trial, like so many cases.
His wife is on Justice Served, right,
yes.
Linda?
I went and spoke on there. She's awesome. They're like a power couple and a half.
Major.
He did the autopsy for the family. He did the autopsy review, and he was like, no, it's a homicide. And that came out on June 25th. And everything went insane for us. Like, we were at about 6,500. We doubled in members on our page. So we went up to like 12,000 members on our Facebook page. And then, so we were able to reach more people, and we got more people sharing stuff. And earlier that year, I started my X page for Sandra, because I have my own personal X page, but I started one for Sandra because I was like, not everybody's on Facebook. And I was already making TikToks every once in a while. I would put one out about Sandra. But I started sharing a lot on X, and a lot of people became receptive and they were sharing it. So if I posted like even about us doing a standout, they would share it. And so we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then on August 28th, he was arrested for her murder in Revere.
Thank God. God is good.
He was,
God is good.
And
Flipperhead is on camera.
Huh?
Oh yeah.
Flipperhead is on camera.
Oh.
Joe Fliphead's on camera. Yeah, no, that was a big deal when he got arrested. Like that was a huge deal. Do you think that there's more down the lane as far as more people being held accountable for what they did or didn't do, for that matter? Like, what do you see for the future in this case?
I hope so. I mean, we have faith that there will be. But I can tell you guys that the FBI has not stopped investigating Sandra's case. It's an active investigation. I know for a fact.
Can I ask you, being involved in the Sandra side of it, when they say that the Karen side of it has stopped, do you believe that?
No.
I don't either.
No.
Because they're not going to call just the police department and Hank and say, hey, we're done.
Yeah, I found that weird that they would do that.
And that Bev accepted it. She knows better. They don't just like call people and they're like, "Hey, guess what? We're done." They don't do that.
Well, if you become a target, like they'll send you a target letter, and they do sometimes let you know that we close the investigation about you. But I think with Karen, there are certain cases they will just say they don't. It'll be like a 2-sentence thing. You know, the investigation into the Karen Reed case has been closed,
right?
Because it's such a public interest. You know, I think that they would just say that they don't have to say any more than that.
If having Sandra's case is still active, you would think that the both of them would be active because they've already arrested the killer. They've already, you know, and with Karen Reed, they've already determined that she wasn't the one who did it. Yeah. So to me, like it would be coinciding.
Yeah, if they've already, you know, like you said, they already determined that the car didn't hit John and John didn't hit the car.
Right.
Well, then why is Norfolk County saying that this happened? And why are they doing all this stuff? If we know, like if I was the FBI and DOJ, I'd be like, this makes no sense. And why are these 2 cases that both involved police officer as the like second person who the culprits of that were the third party culprits in Karen's case, and Matthew Farrell was being put out there as, you know, the person who did it to Sandra,
and all enmeshed.
Yeah, both of them
all in the same county.
Mm-hmm. Same county. And also then you got to take a step back too. The Just en Route case, same county.
Tragic.
Happened a year before Sandra. All these cases, like you guys were saying when I went off camera, John's was the 29th. Let me go back. Just en Routes was the 7th of February, 2020. Sandra's was, you know, February 1st, 2021, and John's was January 29th, 2022. Right. All these cases took place within 24 months. And what do they all have in common? They all police and an accusation of a police cover-up.
Of the same departments.
The same, you know, offices handling all 3 of these cases to be investigated. Like his case, 30 days. They investigated that case for 30 days. That is insane.
Yep.
But they
not for nothing.
Investigated Rich Schiffer for what, 6 months?
Right?
Yeah, Rubber Duck.
I love Rubber Duck. He's amazing.
I love the detective. You know, over a guy who shot by the police.
What's fucked up too is like it's Stoughton, it's Boston Police, it's Canton Police, it's Mass State Police. It's not just like one entity. It's not just like one department that you're like, they're a fucking problem. Oh no. This is like a shalloo of organizations, shalloo of fucking, and they all have something in common is themselves. They're the common denominators in all this bullshit.
Yeah.
And no one takes accountability for a fucking thing.
I mean,
it's like nobody, not one person has to. Colleen Crawford being a woman and covering up for something like that happened to Sandra Birchmore, shame on her. She's a fucking.
Well, it's also like Trooper Prince. You know, there's
right.
You know, they have information from other children. Another girl who was groomed, who happened 10 years before Sandra.
I was gonna say she couldn't be the only one. I don't think.
No, I mean, you think of it. Okay, this young woman was 2001 and 2002. She was in the Stoughton explorers group when Robert Devine took the program over. She was in the first class of Robert Devine with the Farwell twins. And they were running the program with him. I was under the understanding that other officers were helping him. No, it was the Farwell brothers. That's how much power he gave them.
See, I just found something new. I didn't know it was them helping him. I didn't know that it was them. It was the trifecta of them. I thought it was other people too.
As teenagers, they were the deputy chief because he was the chief.
To say this, but like, were they groomed by him too? Like,
they
were they
groomed.
like?
And that's what that young woman said to me when I spoke to her. She said, you know, he groomed them, but to be predators.
Right.
Yeah. That made it opened up my whole brain. Like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Birds of a flock together. And
yeah. And when you read the Stoughton report, Deputy Chief Holmes, he was the one who led the investigation in Stoughton. He says it probably a dozen different ways of like, he was their mentor. He took them under his wing. Just all these like different adjectives he uses to say that he taught them everything they knew.
We have an explorers program here. Like I remember growing up at the county, and the sheriff's department has the explorer, and like all people I've grown up with my whole life were part of it. But it was a legitimate, like reputable program. Like they also took this one guy that I grew up with. He lived down the road from me. His name was Kevin, and he had cerebral palsy, and he also had some other mental issues, but he loved the police, and they took him on as in his wheelchair, and he was at every parade. He was at every event, everything. And if you talk to him, Kevin knew all the sheriffs, everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like it's like that's why for me
it's a shame that there's people like Farwell and Devine and his brother and all that ruin it for kids who really enjoy it.
Only ones, though. There's a lot. If you look up police explorers and abuse, there's a lot of police explorers who have been abused throughout the country. A lot. And the problem is it's affiliated with the Boy Scouts. We know.
I was just going to say this. I would never put my kid in
It's affiliated. It's a program that came from the Boy Scouts. So when you have a company that had such abuse scandals themselves and covered up the abuse of children in their program, and they're farming out another program, and they didn't supervise. So like Robert Devine basically didn't follow the rules from what they wanted people to do. But they never came in. It's not like they came in and said, what are you guys doing? What's the are you following regulations? Because that's what they should have been doing. But they didn't do that.
So no one monitored it. It just kind of was like, here you go, here's a program, have at it, type of thing, and no one oversaw it.
Nobody oversaw it. And like,
that's disturbing.
And you know, Devine came into he was a police officer around this time where there's been a lot of corruption in Stoughton before. And
shocker.
There was a lot of stuff going on in Stoughton. And so, I mean, the FBI had to come into Stoughton before.
Yeah. I am so shocked that you guys would say that there's corruption in Massachusetts, much less Norfolk County. Like, I would never believe that if you would.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I bring this case up all the time, but you live in New England, Mizzy, right?
Yeah.
You heard about Sean Ellis.
I grew up in Boston.
Okay, so I grew up in Hyde Park where it all happened. I mean, I was really young at the time. But look at Boston has been so corrupt. The state of Massachusetts, New England area has been so corrupt for so long. He had to have 4 trials. He stayed in prison for 30 some odd years for a murder he did not commit. I mean, actually, allegedly a prostitute did it because it was a bad cop and like all this stuff. It's fucking wild. But it's been happening for decades, and this will not be the last time. But at least it's people like us standing up for it now, being like, "Not enough fucking watch."
Well, and I feel like
that's the thing is people. I think a lot of people who within the Free Karen Reeve movement were so shocked that this was going on and thought this didn't happen. This happens all throughout the country, unfortunately. Everywhere. You know, every case that I've covered on my channel, it had an element of police corruption, because that was what I wanted to show police corruption in a different way. And I was showing police corruption through how they weren't solving murders. They were burying murders, and these things were being covered up, whether it be because they were the Keystone cops or they were just dirty fucking cops. And like, I don't believe every cop. I am not anti-police. I think the police obviously suit a function within our society that we all need them, but we also need them to be good. We need them to do their job.
Girl, yes, someone clip that.
And murder people, and molest young children. Can we just have that? There are.
Can we leave the children alone? Can we just stop fucking hurting children? I mean, don't hurt anybody, but like, leave the fucking children alone. You sickos. Like, that's just you fucking sickos.
Like there's a even here, like, because for a while there I was like, there's no corruption here. I would never find it. But now I look into my okay, I'm on the my son just came in. I'm on the computer. No, go that way. My son basically, like,
who's it with?
It's with Amy, literally online.
Hi.
Hi.
He just got back from the beach. All right, go that way.
I totally have a shirt on.
No, go.
I'm strong.
Hi, Declan.
Knock it off now. Bye.
See ya.
This is what I said. Real life. Which is over here. It's real life. If it's not an animal climbing on us, or a cat, a dog, or
she takes care of us if it's tough.
All right, get dressed to go. But yeah. So I was saying, I didn't think the corruption was here, and till I think, when I think back at things that I've seen, I realized that these parts of the sheriff's department really do have the same aspects here in Florida, because my cousin's best friend Lacey, she was an adult, of course, she went missing, and they call it, in the Ocala National Forest area, they call it the scrub, because that's where it's you're in like the woods and stuff like that, and they didn't really investigate anything. It was us out there for months on end searching through the scrub, trying to find things and talking to people, literally talking to tweakers, trying to figure out if they all knew what was happening, because there's so much meth out there. And
the tweakers know everything. They know everything that goes around them.
Yeah, and we were there.
Don't sleep on that.
We would find like the mobile meth labs in that was Declan, Sherry. But we would hear about how the police would give them Sudafed, like give them stuff to make meth with out there. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, that doesn't happen. But now that I think about it, like, I remember that happening, or finding out about that. And when you guys talk about the corruption that happens there for Sandra, for John, and when we were searching for Lacey, she was never found. I will say that she's been declared dead, but she, when we were out there, we were out there for months, every weekend, searching as much as we could through the woods. And I can tell you that, like, now that I look back at it, and all the times that my cousin was begging for the help from the police to do something and to come out and to find out that, is this real? Is this what happened? And that they weren't doing it. Like, they would never show up. And I remember the only person they tried to investigate was my cousin, because I had a sheriff's officer call me on my cell phone and say, "Hi, this is Officer so-and-so at Lake County Sheriff's Department." And I was like, "I don't believe you." And he's like, I said, "How do I know you're really a cop?" And he said, "Here's my number." And he had me call him back. And I called the police department back and got him. And so I was like, "Now I'll talk to you." But he's like, "Why did Melinda stay active on Facebook up until 6 p.m. on Friday night and then didn't get back on Facebook until Sunday evening?" I'm like, "Because she was in the fucking woods searching for your job, for her best friend. Like, that's what you guys are supposed to do." And so I see all that corruption, and it just, like, now I look, the wheels start to turn.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about all the old stuff.
I think there's a really good lesson to be learned with these movements, like Sandra Birchmore Case, Karen Reed, for your friend that's missing. We have my friend Nikki, her cousin was abducted and has never been found in like 30 years or something, right? In Massachusetts. And it takes an army, it takes a village outside of law enforcement to make shit happen, to make, you know, too, it's like, if you're not going to spend your entire 12-hour shift looking up for my friend, for my cousin, for my brother, for my sister, then you know what? Then everyone else who loves this person or who loves me or cares about the outcome are going to stand up and do the right thing. And that's what I have seen time and time again with all of these movements. You coming out and you doing all of this for Sandra. You didn't personally know Sandra, but she caught your heart. And you do everything you can to make sure that her name is out there and everything gets gotten to the people who deserve it, right? And Karen Reed, we believe that she's innocent, so we're going to stand up for that. And that's like the best lesson that I've learned in being a part of this past few years, is that community is everything. That's coming together
from that community, but watching it through the screen of YouTube and what you guys do and trying to be as much a part of it as I can. I could only hope and pray that people like Mizzy would stand up for me if something happened to me. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because there is, you don't, like, I would never, I don't even know if anybody like loves me enough. I not say love me enough, but cared enough to keep saying, no, this isn't right. You look further, look harder. And you did this and not even being part of the family. You did this because you thought something was wrong and you went after it, and you're you're fighting still for her. And let me tell you, not for
stood
nothing,
in your power, girl, and I commend you so much. You did. You stood in your power.
I had respect for you whenever I saw things happening to you on different shows. But girl, the day you confronted Bob McCarthy at the afterwards and you screamed, "Her name is Sandra Birchmore." And
yes, girl.
And I'm so fucking busy. Up to my room, like, hell yeah, you go. So
I just wanted to go up there, like, because this was going on for a while, like, because in the previous 2 meetings, he had said her name. He didn't say her name right. He called her Sarah, and then
he sure as hell did, asshole.
And they said he said it again. They asked for them to correct it in the literature, and he was just being a dick about it. And then I wasn't even supposed to be there. We didn't even know there was that was when Five Stones did their interview. Yeah. We didn't know what was happening. I just happened to be in town because Matthew Farrell was supposed to have a court date the day before, and I was going in town, and because we were going to do a standout that Saturday. And so we found out, we're like, let's go. I didn't go in there to like yell at him, but when he said, what's her, and we all said Sandra Birchmore, and he was like, and we said it again, and he like fumbled over it again, and I said Sandra Birchmore, like I saw red. I was like, this motherfucker.
I saw you when
I stood up in this, like, after they interviewed the Five Stones, they left, they took a break, and then we came back in, and I stood in the I didn't sit back down, I stood there, and I have like a cloth sign that has her face on it, and I just stood there so he could see it. And
this is Rachel, what she looks like, sir.
Yeah. My friend Rachel, she's a Canton resident, so I made sure she got to go first. I didn't want to, step on her toes, because she is a Canton resident. And then she walked away, and that's when I said what I said. And I don't know if you could hear what he said. He goes, "Get out of here, lady." And
I'm just a random fucking citizen, like Carly.
You don't fucking dismiss me, because I will get in your.
That's what I like about
you. You are saying, "Let's go," and that's like you're giving me the green light, and I'm a loud bitch, and I will get louder.
Fuck around and find out. And he did.
He said that.
I'm like, no. You're not going to disrespect her, and you're not going to disrespect me too.
That girl is powerful. That's all I can say. Sandra is a lucky girl to have you on her side, because you're fighting for her and her baby, and you're fighting for what's right, and to get Matthew's off the streets. But now the fight is even harder, because you still have 2 people or numerous people who groomed her that you need to get off the streets. But now it's like, I feel like every time they have a court case for Matthew Farwell, it gets rescheduled.
Yeah,
like they're like, oh, sorry, there's nothing on the docket. No, it's not. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets frustrating. We luckily got to have one in-person date. But hopefully one of the next ones will happen. I just look at it like it's not just fighting for Sandra, because that's what we are doing. We're also fighting for her legacy. And, you know, Barb and I talk about it all the time. We want her legacy to be not what these scumbag animals did to her, but we want it to be that she gets to help other children. She gets to help parents be able to talk to their children, because it's not, you know, people think, oh, the big bad, you know, scary guy in this van, that's who's going to hurt your children. No, it's normally, you know, your pastor, it's your the coach, the you know, Girl Scout leader, the Cub Scout leader, a cop who's doing a program. You know, those are the people who are in constant contact with your children. And we think that children are safe with these people, but you need to have your diligence, even if it is a police officer.
Right.
Even if.
I spoke to a woman whose children were in the program, and she's like, she was devastated, because she's like, I know he did this, but it's still hard for me to put my mind around that, you know, like Divine did this. She's like, he was so good to my son. And I said, yes, but I go, and she also knew Sandra. I said, but you were a parent that was there. So they knew they couldn't, and you had siblings in his class. So they couldn't do one to one of the siblings, because the other one would see stuff. So I said, so parents need to show up. Like, and when I say show up, like, okay, I understand you have to work late some days, but you can't always
be present
in the way of showing up for your kids. So a coach, a pastor, or anybody knows that you are going to pop in. You might not be there every week, but you never know when I'm going to pop up.
Have you guys thought of making some kind of bill and say like Sandra's name?
Yeah, so we've been talking about that. There is a bill working its way through the legislature. It's in both houses. It's not like in Sandra's name, but it is to close the loophole. And I don't know all the particulars because it's not fully written yet, but it's basically to anybody who's a mentor, like the Farwells and Divine, you know, coach, a priest, anybody who's a mentor type person, if they do this to a child, it closes up those loopholes. Like, you know, because the age of consent is 16. Why isn't it 18? Because you're at 16 or 17, you're still not an adult.
Right.
So like,
in Florida, it's 18.
Mizzy, if you ever need help with this, I will stand on my head out in front of the state house for hours.
Maybe start
to get this passed. I will help you. I am already on your team, girlfriend.
Maybe start a
we're gonna need, you know, I have to try. I have somebody who's going to get me in contact with the people who wrote the bill, and I want to meet with them and get the whole particulars, what their thought is, and I want to see if maybe there's something we can add, like, you know, if that child ends up murdered, that person can still be
even as an adult, because
even as an adult. But if, like, if their death stems from the abuse, because there are children who go up and go on to kill themselves, like what they said Sandra did. You know, a child who it's not like a natural death, you know, like Sandra's situation where she was murdered, or there's an unaliving. You know, they should still be able to be prosecuted. Just because that person isn't there, they're not there because of what happened to them,
because of what they did.
Yes, exactly. So I want to see if that's something that they can write into the bill. And
actually, someone's asked us a couple times in chat. I want to know if you know. I think I do, but I don't want to misinformation. If because she was pregnant, is Massachusetts a state that lists that as 2 murders and not 1?
I've looked into it. I believe there was a bill that was passed, but it was passed after. So I don't know if it's one of those bills, you know, some bills that are retro, that like it goes back, but I haven't fully looked into that. I know, I believe that the
sounds
federal
right,
crimes, but I think it's Massachusetts. It's not federal crimes. So
got you. Okay, so that
yeah.
yeah.
But
Okay.
what he's being charged with is a death penalty case, because they didn't get him on straight up murder charges. They got him for murdering a witness against him.
Right, and
So
murdering a witness.
yeah.
Right.
In
Yeah.
a sense, I was thinking about this like a couple weeks ago. In a sense, they could go after, if they have the proof that the McAlberts did this, they could get them for that too, for John, because you think of it, what they're going to introduce during the trial, that what Hanky Panky says he wants to introduce, is that with the neurologist coming in saying that she if she had called for an ambulance, John would have been able to be saved.
He would not have been a normal person.
Oh, I know he wouldn't have, but that also applies to the people in the house.
Right.
If you're saying, and that, like, the whole crime, if what we all, we all have our different versions in our minds, what we think happened. But if what happened was an accident, they got into they were drunk guys, acting a fool, over a girl or whatever, whichever scenario you have in your head, there was a fight, there was a brawl, and it went too far. Why didn't they just call? They could have been like, even that.
They butt dialed their help.
Oh, each other. If they called the police, they own the Canton Police Department. They
literally.
It was for the extent that they went to makes no sense. But anyway, I digress from that. But they could get them for this too, because if they John was put out on the lawn, so the act of moving him from the house to the lawn is killing a witness against you.
Right. Yeah. He was a witness to his own assault. If you want to look at it that way, and then they kicked him out. And listen, no one's ever going to try to convince me that Brian Albert was sleeping. He didn't come outside. No, he knew what the fuck he was doing, staying inside. That's my opinion, allegedly.
Yeah, I live in a quiet neighborhood, and there was one night. It was before the trial happened, but it was like right before the trial happened last year, and there was a fire truck. It was like 1-2 in the morning, pulled up to do a UE on my road. And I was like, at first I didn't know what it was. It was so loud. And I was like, what the? And I picked up my thing. I was like, I was like, oh, it's a fire truck. And then I put it down. I didn't know they're loud, but I just, like, in the dead of the night, they are so loud. And I sat
so loud.
I was like, there's no fucking way. There is no way.
Right. With all the lights and stuff. Are you kidding me?
And Karen,
and he's literally trained to like second nature, hear and see those things like that. That's like it's embedded in his soul.
And I have a crazy dog who is part German Shepherd. She looks like a shrunken down German Shepherd, like her body, and then her head looks almost like a beagle type deal thing. Cute. But she has kind of like a washed out German Shepherd kind of vibe to her. And I'm like, my dog, just like, she hears the house boards creak. Like if I come upstairs to use my bathroom and I come walking down, she'll flip out because she hears me. And I'm like, baby girl, it's me. I'm like,
absolutely
bull crap. Your dog would have been going crazy.
I say, Crowley, it's the freaking wind.
Yeah.
Like,
literally.
The wind. There's nobody outside. And when he barks, then you got the other two start barking. And then the house starts because they're barking. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys, you're barking at the wind. So I get it. Like, that's why I don't understand how Chloe didn't hear that. But I mean,
Chloe wasn't in the house.
Back to
my opinion, allegedly.
Well, apparently they said they changed her name to Noelle, but I don't know.
Good too. I'm glad Babs saw through fucking Brendan's bullshit today with the whole bite marks and teeth and all that kind of, like, she was just like, let's just not do this. Let's just stop it, Miss Brendan.
I want to know what your thoughts are when Sandra's name entered the Karen Reed case.
Or the audit. the audit. Sorry.
Well, because I don't know if you remember, like, even before they spoke about Sandra in court, they had asked for the information, and they turned over basically what you or I could get from doing a FOIA request. And that's why they did the did another motion to get the information. And as they were going over it, I was just like, yes.
Like the moment they said her name in court, it made
I was like, yes. Because I mean, like, it was the first time besides the civil case, but the civil case, it's been kind of slow moving, like civil cases are. And her name being spoken in court, because we have such lulls in her case, and especially since it's federal, so we can't watch the hearings online. So I was like, yes. And
now her name is in actual transcripts of the court case. And that, to me, that's huge. Like I literally was like, Sandra has entered the case.
Yeah.
Sandra Birchmore entered the chat. She was on her. You're good. Just to have her name said perfectly out loud in court like that made my heart sing. I was like, you go, girl. You're getting yours.
Everybody's screaming. So it was
yeah. And the original time that they had turned stuff over, I reached out to Kelly Reed, and I said, I just want to make sure you guys get everything. That I don't have everything. If I did, I would have just gladly turned it all over to them, and everything I have is redacted. But I just wanted to make sure that they were getting what they were supposed to get. I said, because I said, you know, this 32, this was before, was that after he got arrested the first time? No, I can't remember. I think it was after, but I don't think, I think it kind of died down. I said, because there's over 32,000 text messages. And I said, there's a lot. So it shouldn't be like a little bit of stuff, information. I said, it should be a lot of information you guys get. But yeah, when I was so excited and happy.
Like those little things that I see, like I always think of you, and I'm like, I know that Mizzy is probably just like jumping up and down, and and not that we had never met, but you know, you're the face of that movement. You know what I mean?
When I think of Sandra Birchmore, I think of Mizzy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Her name, Sandra Birchmore, the baby. You think of, you know, even Matthew Farwell. The first thing I say is, "What is Mizzy watching this? Like, is Mizzy got this?" You know, and then it's just like the day that you told Bob McCarthy, like that. Really, that day will always live like in my brain, because I was like, that woman got power behind her. She was pissed. So
amen.
It was amazing.
Her cousin Barb loves that video.
It was so good. Everyone, you collectively just went, oh.
I'm like, oh. Like, if you don't know the contest, like why I'm yelling at him, it's like, oh, you got to get the whole story.
Yeah.
The people who matter know. Yeah.
Thank you from the outside looking in on what you've done to bring Sandra Birchmore and her baby's name to the surface. And you are a huge part of why Matthew Farwell is in jail. And that's a huge deal. And I thank you for that. I thank you on behalf of women and babies for that, because that's a huge deal. And
I look at it, I have a big mouth, so I might as well use it for some good.
Girl, amen, girl. It's amazing.
Come on here and actually chit chat. Let's do it.
And
I know, right?
Kind of like, I mean, since I got sick, I'm not as, I think about things before, but I'm kind of a fearless person. Like I don't get intimidated easy. Like I'm not one of those type of people you can get in my face and I'm going to be afraid of you. Obviously, I realize like police officers can take my liberty away. So I do try to tread lightly. You know, that's why when I go into Stoughton or Canton, I'll text Rafferty saying, hey, we're gonna be doing a standout in Stoughton, Canton next week. Or Stoughton, I text with the deputy chief, say, hey, we're gonna be doing this in Stoughton, just so I can keep you know, a good report, not be besties with them, but you know,
absolutely be mature about it. I mean,
Do you feel like they support you and what you're doing, or do you feel like they're just placating you to let you do it?
I know I've had some conversations with the deputy chief of Stoughton, and he's been very, very supportive.
That's amazing.
You know, Rafferty's been weird. Yeah, I guess she's been kind of supportive, but I mean, obviously they don't want us coming. They don't want us on their lawn, you know. They want this all.
They don't want anybody on lawns and kids.
They don't want us on the lawn either.
Apparently, nobody's allowed to go to Canton.
Yeah.
So
actually, so a friend of mine, Craig Casey, was found dead on a lawn in Canton, and Joe Chief Rafferty's explanation was for, I knew him. He was a person. He had a mother. He was somebody's son. He was someone's friend. Like, he was Craig, and her thing was, well, because we didn't find it, didn't matter. He wouldn't have lived anyway. That was her explanation for not finding a fucking crash victim that was spewed on someone's lawn.
A neurologist is going
it wouldn't have mattered.
And could have saved John's life if she called somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would have happened the same way. If he was still alive and he was found on time, they could have saved him.
So, did you find it as Craig's friend? Did you find it interesting that they kept calling his case in the audit murder?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I do know, I can't say too much for his family, but I don't know what they want out and what they don't. But I do believe that there is a paper that had to have been signed that no one could talk about it publicly.
But just that I thought that was interesting because it's always been like, oh, it was just an accident, but they kept saying murder. The auditors said it over and over again. I knew it wasn't like a Freudian slip or just a slip. They said it repeatedly.
I think that and when I heard it, I thought to myself, like, vehicular homicide, because there was an accident and my thing is that how do you get into an accident here at an intersection? Please come and investigate, grab your car. You're not there. Driver isn't there. There's nothing here. And then you're found on someone's lawn the next day, like 12 hours later. That just doesn't resonate to me. I'm sure it was murder, but I don't think that everything is as it seemed. That their narrative of what happened, I don't believe happened.
Yeah.
But I did find it interesting that they called it murder, because he's the last person to be spoken about ever when it comes to murders in Canton. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but you're gonna call it that then?
Yeah.
So hopefully there's other things in the works, but I do know that I think there was some paper signed that his family couldn't speak out. So,
well. I love talking with you, Mizzy, and if you
me too.
Great.
My nose itches so bad, my eyes are watering. I feel like everyone's looking at me like I've lost my mind. I'm like,
you're good.
I'm gonna head out, but I thank you so much for coming on. It was
thank
great.
you so much. Hopefully we can have you on again and talk some more case.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. All right, guys.
We will always say Sandra Birchmore's name. And
always say her name, Sandra Birchmore.
We need more people just keep her out there. It can't be just me out there. It needs to like reverberate out there. You know, it can't be just me. Absolutely. Thank you.
And anytime that I find out that there is a standout for Sandra Birchmore, no matter where it is, I will post it here on my YouTube. If you guys ever want to check in, I try to post a lot of the standouts in the area, and I'll do the same here if you guys want to go attend.
Our next one is going to be for her birthday.
Oh, when is it?
Her birthday is May 13th, but it's going to be May 17th, the Saturday after.
What time?
1 to 4.
1 to 4. Perfect.
And hopefully,
maybe I'll see you there.
Karen's case wraps up. Maybe a lot of the people that stand out for Karen will kind of come out and start standing out for Sandra Birchmore and the baby.
That's who comes and stands out with us now. I mean, you guys were saying hi to Dennis.
I love Dennis.
They come and stand out with us. there's so many, you know, Canton residents who come and stand with us. You know, almost everybody who comes to stand with us is free care and read. So
well, when Amy comes, she'll just have me on on you know video, and that way I'm
you could
I'm 20 minutes away. I'll be there. Yeah. Absolutely. I will. I definitely will.
Well,
all right, you guys, thank you for being here with us. And thank you, Mizzy, again. Hopefully you can come hang out with us again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.